Morning Liberty.
Well, what is up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Good Morning Liberty. My name is Nate Thurston. Across from me is Mr. Charles Chuck Thompson on a beautiful Friday morning here in Nashville, Tennessee. How's it going today, Chuck?
Chilly Friday morning.
Yeah, it's not that beautiful.
Tell you what, I appreciate severe thunderstorms.
Yeah, those are way better than tornadoes.
Tornado warning.
For sure. Well, it's Dumb Bleep of the week. That's what happens on Fridays.
Because you know what I did yesterday during the severe thunderstorm warning?
Nothing.
I slept.
You didn't do anything, yeah.
It was glorious.
Exactly.
It was thundering.
It's Dumb Bleep of the week. We do that on Fridays, and today is a...
when we want to.
Or scheduled, yeah. Apparently when we want to, because last week we suspended Dumb Bleep because we spent the entire time talking about the trade war that, I don't know, doesn't exist, does exist. I don't know which one it is now. With China,
Yeah.
It definitely exists. So we talked about that for the entire show and suspended that Dumb Bleep, and then we have held that suspension of that specific Dumb Bleep. Those Dumb Bleep rights are still suspended currently, but we are going to throw in a new one right now. This one is not as well put together as you would normally get. We apologize. I just decided last night I was going out of town this weekend, and so my schedule has been sort of cut short, a little bit busier today. And so we decided, I believe, 2 minutes before the show that we were going to go at this time. And so now that's what we're doing. We're going. We're going to do it. We got a couple quick and easy ones to start off with. Thank God.
Every time we've gone live, Trump has increased tariffs on China.
But China increased them this time.
Sounds like China increased them this time, so we're probably going to go more.
You know, honestly, we need to stop going live. I think that's the problem here. Because every time we do a show, the tariffs go up. So if it to
He
save,
went 125, 145. Just go 250.
yeah, let's stop screwing around here. Exponential tariff increases. That's what we got to do.
It's funny, before we get into this, though, I keep seeing all the people on the left talking about how Trump didn't account for everyone else trading with China and how they're making deals with China and they're going to leave the United States in the dust. Well, that's a little difficult to do, I would say, though, considering we're still the number one consumer.
Yeah, we have 5% of the world's people, and we consume a quarter of the world's stuff. So that is one thing that people have to take into account. So now we're pro-trade war. Exactly.
I'm not saying I'm pro-trade war. I'm just, the talking points are funny.
Yeah.
I found them to be
the
funny.
talking points make no sense on almost any
And
of
I
the
saw
sides.
one girl say, tariff this, tariff that. Why doesn't somebody come tear off my clothes?
Really?
And give me
what
a kiss.
website were you on?
That was on TikTok.
Oh, okay.
And I actually thought it was pretty funny.
All
It was
right.
like a dad joke.
Yeah.
She was like, tariff
I'm not
this,
sure that was a dad joke, but
tariff
yeah,
that.
I'm not sure. Okay, anyway, we got to get into Dumb Bleep seriously. Dumb Bleep number one, there was a very sad, terrible, tragic helicopter crash that occurred in New York yesterday. Just awful video of the helicopter falling from the sky. And turns out there was a family from Spain that had just gotten to New York that day that was doing a helicopter tour of Manhattan. And the helicopter crashed.
From a company that people are probably very familiar with, the Siemens Electric.
Is that...
Yeah, I was the CEO of the Spanish division of
really?
Siemens.
Oh, I hadn't seen that.
A lot of you probably have a Siemens control panel.
That sounds like a conspiracy theory.
That's true. Yeah.
It's true.
Which is leading to a conspiracy theory.
I heard it on Joe Rogan.
By the way.
Anyhow, what's disgusting, I would say, is some of the reaction that we've seen from, of course, people on the left, which like Brooklyn Dad Defiant, who is still a thing, I guess, saying, breaking, yet another deadly aviation incident under the Trump administration as a helicopter carrying 4 people plunged into the Hudson River and fatalities have been reported. It has only been 80 days. Feels like a year. So, of course, the premise here is that this helicopter crash is the fault of the Trump administration. Like this other post right here says, we didn't have helicopter crashes and unsafe airways when Joe and Kamala were in office, or Kamala were in office. And so that's not, just so you know, we've already talked about the stats on all of that. And so I'm not even going to bring them up. That's not true. There were actually more aviation accidents. So when you go to the NTSB's dashboard on that, there were actually more. The crazier part about this is it's not as if It's not as if freezing hiring on air traffic controllers or firing air traffic controllers, if that ever even happened in the first place, would cause the rotors to pop off of a helicopter while it was flying around. I mean, this picture is just insane. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but
it's pretty nuts.
That is essentially that is worst case scenario for a helicopter right there.
Yeah, it's really hard
It doesn't get much worse than that.
I don't think there's a protocol.
No, there's nothing you can do about that. The rotors just
chopper
popped
disengages
off.
from the chopper.
It looks like one of those hats that you wear that has like the little spinning thing on top of it. Only it's the rotors from the helicopter, and that's super sad. I mean, I saw pictures of the family and all that kind of stuff, and just terrible. But to take this and immediately make it political.
Where's the tail at?
I guess it's down. I guess it's right there. I guess I don't know what happened with that. Maybe when it popped off, the helicopter flew forward, the tail went up and hit the rotors, maybe. Something like that would be my guess. I don't think you can just immediately... I'm not saying it's not Trump's fault. I don't know. I'm no expert on this matter, okay?
Yeah.
I don't know. But I don't think you can immediately blame this on Donald Trump. You know, there could be a way.
I think we've seen enough helicopter crashes like Kobe and this one now that
I'm not doing
probably shouldn't get on one.
I'm not doing helicopters.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
I've done one helicopter tour. I think that's enough.
Yeah. Let's get to Kristi Noem.
So that's number one,
That was number one, helicopter.
It's Trump's fault.
Helicopter Trump. Number two is Kristi Noem in this great piece of propaganda video that we have here for Department of Homeland Security, where she is, they're going around, they're arresting people, they're keeping the streets safe. There's just a couple issues here, and the reason we have to do this, I'm sorry, MAGA people, I'm sorry, Trump people, but if a Democrat did this, you'd be dragging them for it too. You can listen to the substance of the video if you want to hear it.
Here we are with Marco and Brian today. They're letting me roll with them. We're going to go out and pick up somebody who I think is got charges of human trafficking.
Can we just talk about this gun for a second? Because this is...
These guys are letting her roll with them, by the way.
They're rolling.
They're rolling. Pick up human traffickers.
This is the most ridiculous gun.
She thinks.
It's the most ridiculous. They're pretty sure that's what they are. This gun...
That's the scariest gun imaginable.
First off, she's pointing at the head of the guy that's to her left. Okay, so number one. Number two, this gun's got a couple flashlights on it. It's got a scope and a red dot. It's got a 50-round magazine on it. The grips are ridiculous. It's not a gun that any of them are used. I guarantee you the guy next to her is holding probably like a normal ass gun, I bet you. And she was like, give me the scariest gun imaginable.
She's holding it like a teacup.
And then she's holding it like she's about to milk a cow down there on the or something.
Yeah.
I'm not real sure.
Yep.
She's holding it, you could say she's got good trigger.
Looks like a female grip.
She's got good trigger discipline. Her finger is not on the trigger, but it's not. Yeah. Also, she's not ready to fire. You got to look at pictures of this, folks, for it to actually make much sense to you. Now, this thing has a grip right here, but then she's also gripping it super awkwardly, like she's using her strong hand to hold it up here, stable, and her vest isn't even all the way on either. It's just a mess. It's just a mess.
Is she actually rolling with it?
And so something leads me to believe that she is.
And this is
not, in fact, being used as tactical personnel for this strike team that's going out and getting people that they just threw a bunch of stuff on her real quick and recorded the video, and that is dumb.
Yeah. And as the Fed Haters Club points out, she spent more time on her hair. It does look like her extensions are flowing nicely.
Yeah.
Which is how maybe she's there to attract the human trafficker out of their hiding place.
And you can't tell really in this photo.
Got you, bitch.
You can't tell really in this photo, but she just has the biggest smile on her face.
Yeah. True.
She's smiling so hard right now. All right, so that's Dumb Bleep number 2.
Kristi Noem.
Noem. She Noem. Okay. All right. We made it to a couple clips from the Douglas Murray, Dave Smith debate / conversation on Joe Rogan. This is where we're going to get bogged down for a few minutes. We made it through the first couple pretty quick. Charlie, have you seen anything about this yet?
I haven't.
No?
I did see that that they did a show.
They did do a show.
With Dave Smith, Douglas Murray, and Joe Rogan.
I saw from the Dave Smith fans that Dave Smith wiped the floor, and I saw from the Douglas Murray fans that Douglas Murray wiped the floor. And so I want to actually have a decent conversation about this because I think this is pretty important. Let me find the clip. It's a 6-minute clip, but we're going to play a decent amount of it here. Hold on. Wait one. Give me a second. Let me find that. So the premise here that they start with is that Joe Rogan has been having a bunch of these far-right Hitler apologists, people who hate Israel, been having all those kind of people on there, and that he hasn't had any experts on the war coming on. And I just want to tell you, my main bother with this whole thing is not exactly the substance of everything Murray is saying. It's the way he says it. The way that he argues his points and the way that he's talking to the other people in the room has this sort of holier-than-thou, pompous, arrogant, I'm an expert, you guys are beneath me type of attitude that's just sort of 10x'd by his British accent, which these people use because they know that naturally Americans think that makes them smarter just by having a British accent.
I like how the Fed Haters Club calls him a redcoat.
Yeah. No, I mean, he makes these points. I'm going to play some of this clip. I'll see how long we can let it go. But
categorically poopy
we'll stop it as we go.
The bigger, kind of the bigger picture dynamics to all of this is that we have, at least since 9/11, been in a state of perpetual war. And all of these wars have been disasters. They have been so many lies involved in selling all of them. I mean, the whole Iraq war, the whole war in Afghanistan, just lying the whole way through. I mean, I remember literally having conversations with Green Berets in the middle of the war in Afghanistan, and they're like, George W. Bush is telling you that the army we're building up there is really successful. This thing's going to fall in a week without us. And then all through the Obama administration, it's just like lie after lie after lie with disastrous wars. And so this does create a fertile ground for people to say, I wonder if they were lying about all these wars.
Sure.
Again, I'm not really trying to argue with you about World War II. I'd rather argue about these wars today.
I think the interesting question is whether you're busy watering it.
Well, should you not talk about mistakes that were made
You should.
overall?
Absolutely.
Okay, you should.
Absolutely.
Right.
I'm all for
What do you
going
say?
back and looking
It's
at
fertile
mistakes.
ground. You're too busy.
So what they're talking about here is the
I know what they're talking about.
the conversation.
I'm just saying, comment.
Well, they're talking about
It's fertile ground. And I think you're too worried about watering it.
the conversation about between Hitler and Churchill, and Daryl Cooper had made this kind of comment about Churchill being the villain in World War II, and people take all these things out of context, and Hitler's misunderstood and all that sort of stuff. And so they're having this conversation, and the point that Dave Smith is trying to make, which I think is a really good one, is that we've been lied to about these wars like our entire lives now, and it would make sense. Like I don't think you would say, well, this, Vietnam was a lie, and we didn't really have to do Desert Storm, or we didn't have to do Operation Iraqi Freedom, or we didn't have to go in Afghanistan. It kind of seems like this war between Russia and Ukraine was provoked. Maybe there's another way out of this Israel-Gaza thing, and we should stop funding them. And you're like, but every single thing that you hear about World War II is truthful, and no one ever lies about that at all.
Yeah.
There's no way. That's the only war where there were no lies at all. Now, listen, that doesn't mean, hey, I'm no expert on this, which we're going to play their conversation about experts here in a second. That doesn't mean that Hitler was a good guy. Doesn't mean that Churchill was the chief villain in World War II. I prefer that Hitler loses that war.
Doesn't mean Stalin was a good guy.
Definitely doesn't mean Stalin was a good guy.
Doesn't mean the United States made a mistake by knowing Pearl Harbor was going to happen, allowed it to happen so they could enter the war.
Exactly. It doesn't mean
mean rounding up Japanese and putting them in prison camps isn't a
But here's what
good thing to do.
Here's what has happened after World War II. we come out of World War II, the way that we discuss it is that there were angels and a demon in World War II, and that's it. And that's all you can discuss about it. There's no nuance. There were no off-ramps. There were no ways to avoid it at all. We think that
we had to drop the atomic bombs.
And then since then, here's the biggest problem, and I think the point that Dave Smith is trying to make and makes later on. Since then, every war has been boiled down to, this is Hitler versus Churchill and FDR. Every war. Putin is Hitler, Hussein is Hitler. All these people are Hitler. And so we keep using World War II over and over again for the establishment or for the experts to lie us into a new war over and over again. And so maybe it is important to talk a little bit more about World War II every now and then. Maybe because what if there were off-ramps? What if there was a way to get out of it? But we just keep using this war and Hitler and Churchill and FDR as a reason that we should get into World War III with Vladimir Putin, or a reason that we should go into Iraq or Syria or Yemen or any of these places, because we just have to keep using that over and over again. Iran. Thank you, from the group. And so, yeah, maybe we should talk about it a little bit more, every once in a while, because I keep hearing that this is Hitler versus Churchill, and it's not. And so that's why people keep bringing it up all the time. Let me play a bit more. This is a little bit of a longer clip.
Your argument, then.
It's a very weird thing to go back, zone in on a man, say this one thing is a mistake and should characterize him, and you ignore everything else.
You're taking him out of context when you're talking about Daryl, who's done, what was it, 30 plus hours?
So what? 30 plus hours of podcasting. You do that in a week. I mean,
but it's a very different thing.
He's not doing a podcast like talking to people.
Okay, nor is he doing scholarly work, nor is he working in the archives, clearly. Come on. I mean, he is not the historian of our era.
He's not claiming to be.
What makes someone a historian? I've got an honest question for you. I'm just asking questions right now.
Yeah.
Okay. What makes you a historian or an expert? Yeah. That's what this conversation boils down to.
You got to have a piece of paper.
You've got to be anointed a historian by some organization that you paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to.
And according to him, it's probably going to be from Cambridge.
Yeah, that's who it's got to be from.
Yeah,
for sure. And then you can be a historian.
Oxford.
But what makes someone a historian? You study history. I guarantee you there are people who are not historians anointed by the board of historians out of Oxford that have studied more history than a bunch of those historians have. I mean, there's like a meme that goes around, like when you're studying history in school, you're like falling asleep and dead. But when you're studying history for fun as a sport, it's the meme from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where he's doing the board and all that. And that's like, that really is the case. But like, what anoints someone a historian? And how do you just decide that whatever those people are studying, listen, I'm not saying they're all wrong. That's not what I'm saying. But this appeal to authority of the title historian for someone makes no sense to me. And how do you know that nothing those people do is ever based on things that aren't even true? It's hard to base facts off of news articles from last week right now. You're talking about archives from 80, 90 years ago, and that's what we're going to base everything off of?
And you're saying there's no lies? You're not allowed to question any of it?
You should be able to question it.
And if you do, then you can't question it because you're not a scholarly historian?
The most annoying thing to me, and this is why I didn't really have an opinion of Douglas Murray before this conversation. My opinion now is that I can't stand the guy, and I feel the need to block him to make sure that he never makes it on my timeline. It doesn't mean I disagree with everything he's saying about Hitler and Churchill or Israel and Gaza or whatever it is, but I can't stand the way this guy talks to people. I can't stand this pompous, arrogant attitude talking to people. And what he does in this conversation is someone says something, he'll pick one thing, he'll say it, and they'll give him a retort. And they'll give him a pretty good retort on that. And then he'll pick one word they said that was maybe misplaced and not the proper Queen's English, and then he'll pick on that.
King's English.
The King's English.
Yeah,
sorry,
Queen's dead.
And then so because he just got a pretty good retort from someone, he's now latched onto that. The conversation with him and Dave Smith and Joe Rogan is this example we've used a bunch of times. It's 3 hours into an argument with your girlfriend or your wife, where you guys are not talking about what you started talking about. You're talking about the way you guys said something an hour ago. The tone someone used, the specific word someone used, and then you're arguing about that, and then you're arguing about how you argued about that afterwards. You're not talking about the actual substance of the argument, and that's what he uses to get away from good points that people make against him.
So he's a chick.
This literally, I couldn't listen to the whole thing because it sounds like I'm listening to an argument with an old girlfriend, something like that. I don't have this problem with my wife, okay?
Yeah.
15 years of training, okay? We got a certificate and everything.
We talk
I'm basically
about
an expert.
substance only.
Basically an expert, okay?
This is the thing, Joe. This is like punching jelly.
No, but you don't consume his work.
What I'm saying, because I don't need to consume endless versions of a revisionist history. I understand.
But
I know where this comes from.
Revisionist history. If you listen to his work, it's not revisionist history. He's basing it on historical work.
I know. But okay, so this is my point about jelly. It's a shape-shifting thing. Comedian or historian?
He's not a comedian.
Historian or podcast? Would-be historian or actual historian? You say he doesn't claim to be a historian, but he's pumping out tens of hours of history.
Does Dan Carlin. He doesn't claim to be a historian either.
You see my point about the move. It's like some weird jiu-jitsu move.
No, I don't.
Where you say, hang on, you know all about this as well. You say, I'm not a historian, but I'm going to spend my time talking about history. I'm not a journalist, but I'm going to spend my time talking about this thing. I'm not an expert on this, but I'm going to spend my time talking about this thing. It's a weird move, yeah?
No.
You don't think?
No, I'm a free American. I can talk about what I like to.
You can talk about what you want.
So what is the point
I've noticed
here?
you can. But
So
we
what's
all
the
can.
point?
The point is, what are you pushing? What are you watering?
What am
Why?
I pushing?
Yes.
Liberty, free markets, peace, prosperity, not getting in another stupid catastrophic war, which we're on the precipice of right now. That's what I'm pushing.
What are we on the precipice of?
Well, I think weren't you just talking about it the other day? Everyone I hear on the inside says we're about to attack Iran. I think you just said something about that the other day. Am I wrong about that? I thought I saw in one of your interviews that you did.
Possibly.
No. Okay.
That doesn't mean we are on the verge of a war. I mean, you keep referring to we being in wars. There's a very big difference between
So he just did it right there. He skipped over the point that Dave Smith made and then attacks his use of the word we instead of talking about us being on the precipice of a war. And now we're going to have a conversation about what it means for a country to be at war. Is that the war that's inside your borders that you're having to worry about fighting? Or is it your soldiers fighting on some distant battlefield? Does that really mean that we are involved in a war? And he skips over the entire point that Dave made, and that's the way he keeps getting out of this. Because, listen, Murray is, I think, a pretty smart guy, and he's pretty knowledgeable on a lot of things, but Dave Smith makes a lot of good points that he doesn't have anything to say back to at all. And so he finds a way to weasel out of it and change the argument immediately.
Yeah.
And that maybe that is a sign of intelligence in debating, because he does a good job, and it's probably a stupid accent that makes it sound even better when he does
Also,
it.
very similar to arguing with a narcissist, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, when they argue semantics. Now, look, semantics. Now, I want you to contrast this with, like, because a lot of people say that about Jordan Peterson. But I think if you contrast like this with the Kathy Newman interview, you'll see the difference where the other person asking the question is trying to twist words. Whereas, like, in this point, the person answering the question is the one twisting them or skipping past the actual
person
point.
Who's asking the question.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a very different, it's a stark contrast where you can actually see the difference, which I think is very educational. I'm not an expert in linguistics,
I
know. But I feel like if you watched them, you would, maybe pick up a few things.
Having a military that's engaged and a country being at war. This country has not been at war for 25 years. You have not been fighting for the American homeland.
What?
Sorry, Mom. Tell that to all the f***ing soldiers who have died.
Yeah.
By suicide or in the wars, or
and
all the hundreds of
dollars we've spent.
All the hundreds of thousands of people that we've killed, or the millions of people that we killed, for someone to sit there and, instead of answering Dave Smith's point, to try and turn around and say, well, this country hasn't been at war for 25 years. You got to be freaking kidding me.
Because we don't because the last time we were attacked was the planes hitting the buildings.
Yeah.
And we don't have any buildings crumbling in America, so we're not at war.
To be so arrogant and to refuse to have an actual genuine conversation, that you would twist it all the way into saying that America has not been at war for 25 years so you can get out of the conversation, is fucking psychotic to me. It just is.
And for 25 years.
Yes, we haven't. That's true.
Right.
We haven't had a war
Right.
on our shores. We've been picking on third world countries halfway around the world.
Well, you haven't been randomly picking on them. I mean, Afghanistan, you went...
I didn't say it was random.
Yeah, right, okay. It wasn't like you suddenly decided to bomb, again, Myanmar or something. We went for Afghanistan to find bin Laden and take revenge for 9/11 and stop an attack like that happening again on the American homeland. That is very different from a country being at war.
Yeah, but that's a total mischaracterization of the war in Afghanistan. It's one thing to say that might be an accurate characterization of the special operations mission in late 2001, but then we fought a 20-year regime change war against the Taliban.
Because you got dragged into the quicksand of war.
Okay, fine.
so
But
now
fine.
we're
I thought
at
it wasn't a
war.
war. Like, what? I don't get
No,
your
I said it
argument.
wasn't war. It's your use of we.
Now, okay, so he gets caught right there.
Yeah.
And then he says, no, it's not that it wasn't
Because
a
you got
war.
in the quicksand of war.
No, it's not that it wasn't a war. It was your use of the word we. No, that's not how we started this conversation. Okay?
God.
That is not, you just made that up right then.
Yeah.
He just made that up because he got caught on the war part.
You know what I would do? I would just be like,
As if you're
I can't.
personally like suffering this
You
war.
win.
I mean, yeah, you're a
Yes,
taxpayer.
when I say we,
we're taxpayers,
implied,
so we
okay.
pay for it.
He
Okay.
literally just made that up to get out of the fact that he got caught on the war thing, saying that we got caught in war.
Okay, fine.
Douglas, would
But,
you go, if I went back and corrected you on every time you've used the term we to refer to your government or something like that? Like if I were to say, oh, we just
It's fine,
imposed tariffs on China,
it's
would
just
you point out that
take
I
it-
didn't
you
and it was the
take
Trump
it-
administration?
I'm saying you take it obviously very personally, and that's your right to do so, of course. I'm just trying to make sure we're accurate.
Now he's saying like, oh, I can see that you're getting excited about this. I can see that this is, touching the nerve. Yeah. I can't stand this guy. I don't care what points he makes.
What do you think I'm taking personally?
Just that, the American wars.
Sure, yeah. I think
Yeah.
they've killed hundreds of thousands of people and cost my country $8 trillion and degraded my country very much.
And there's a very good argument to make on that.
Yeah, that's the argument he's making. That's the argument.
That is the
He
argument.
started with that argument, and you started arguing against it, and then you said it's because he said we, and now you just said, yeah, well, if someone were to make that argument, it would be a good argument. That's the argument.
I'm still slightly bemused about this move from I'm an expert on this and I have views to I'm a comedian.
I've never claimed to be an expert on anything.
This is the problem, Joe. I mean, if somebody
Wait a minute,
says
you have to claim to be an expert on something to have an opinion on something?
you don't have to be. You don't have to be. But
So what's
this is
the
like
issue?
I'm not a historian, but I'm pumping out history.
But wait a minute,
I'm
what
not
about
an expert,
just-
but I'm talking all the time about
But
this
you're not
thing.
even talking about specifically on what he just said.
No, I'm saying this is
By the
my
way,
point about
did you see that power move Rogan just pulled on Dave right there? Did you see that? Watch that hand motion when Dave starts to talk.
Expert on something to have an opinion on something?
You don't have to be. You don't have to be. But
So what's
this is
the
like
issue?
I'm not a historian, but I'm pumping out history.
But wait a minute,
I'm
what
not
about
an expert,
just-
but I'm talking all the time about
But
this
you're not
thing.
even talking about specifically on what he just said.
Hang on, Dave.
No, I'm saying this is my
I
point
got
about
this.
this. You say I'm not an expert.
So what's the solution? To not talk about it?
No, it's to have more experts around.
Well, the expert
To
class
hear-
hasn't done a great job.
I know.
Man. This is follow the science.
Absolutely,
Yeah, but you know what?
absolutely, I
Okay, so
agree
fine.
with
So
that.
during,
I just said
okay,
to you,
so-
I agree
right,
with that.
Right, I know.
But
So
one of the
Douglas,
problems
during
is-
all of COVID,
Fire away.
I will put my track record against any of the expert class on COVID. I'm glad to do that. So should I have just shut up? Should I have shut up by opposing lockdowns and opposing vaccine mandates
No.
and
Well,
talking
that
about
was
the
the
lab leak
argument at the
theory?
time. You realize
that's
that,
the
right?
entire argument that you're making. Let the
No, I'm
experts
not.
handle.
And so what happens here is they end up having a little bit of a, chummy conversation about COVID right afterwards because
I like your word choice. Yeah. It's a little chummy, mate.
because Douglas Murray has decided that the experts were wrong on COVID. And so he's saying, no, absolutely, you should have spoken out against the vaccine mandate.
When the experts are wrong.
Absolutely, you should have spoken out about the lab leak. Absolutely, you should have spoken out about all the lockdowns and all that. Absolutely, even though the experts were saying something else. Yeah. It's just, we gotta move on, but wow. Like I said,
I don't think we need to talk about anything else. I mean, I feel like that's probably the clear winner.
We can't suspend Dumb Bleep again. We can't do that to the people.
Well, they got 3 choices. That's
not even as many as we had in the election last time around.
We have a clear winner right here. Last week, they only had 1 choice. It's still democracy, though. And
it's okay. We got some fast ones that we can do.
Okay.
But just so maybe I do want to respond to someone, because we have a listener who was disappointed by my anger tweeting this morning. And because when I watched that clip, I had so much anger for Murray and for everyone, and for most women, and for so many people who argue like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I went through several different ways that I could tweet about it, and honestly, I just couldn't. I just could not find a way. The first thing I said was Douglas Murray made it through this clip without getting punched in the face, and that is a big disappointment. That's the first thing I came up with. Yeah. And then I also reposted something from Clint Russell, who said if Douglas Murray didn't have a posh British accent, it would be obvious to everyone that he is legitimately retarded. And one of our listeners decides that means we agree with some of the more detestable conspiracy theorists that are out there, like this guy, Jake Shields. Jake Shields is a guy that I've either blocked or muted, because
I'll tell you, I don't even know who that is.
He's literally one of these guys who is like, these evil, disgusting Jews are running the world, and everything that happens is because of Jews. Everything that ever happens is because someone dies, it's a Jew. Someone raped, it's a Jew. A war happened, it's a Jew. And that's like Jake Shields' idea about how the world works. And there are a lot of people who are like that. I think that that's dumb as hell. And so, yeah, I think it is. I think it is the fighter. Is that the same guy? Pretty sure. And so I've either muted or blocked him, because I was like, this is ridiculous.
Tell you what,
like,
I've never heard of him.
Well, you just haven't made it to that part of X, I guess.
No.
But you probably haven't seen it because I muted him.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Jake?
But just because I think we could have a conversation about whether or not there were better decisions that could have been made in World War II, which I think is important, because then, how you only got one way of, guiding yourself, and that's the lamp.
Of history.
Of history?
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, don't you want to make sure that the history is freaking accurate when you're doing that?
You have but one lamp by which your feet are guided.
That's what I said.
And that's the lamp of history.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Douglas, come on.
Stop no way of judging the future, but by the past.
And so and here's the problem, we keep using World War II as a justification for why we should get into every single war that the establishment ever wants to be involved in. And so shouldn't we, if there is a chance there was an off-ramp, was there a way to stop 10 million people from dying, and then making sure Stalin kept power, which then led to like 50 more million people dying afterwards? Were there better decisions that could have been made? Could we know all of that so we don't do it again?
Should we try to learn from our mistakes?
Something. It doesn't mean that Hitler was a good guy.
Yeah.
That's not what it means at all to me, to say that I would like to know. But even when I hear these people come on and talk about it, like Daryl Cooper or whoever it is that comes on and talk, I'm like, okay, well, that's an interesting perspective. I put as much weight on that as I do the experts talking. Okay, I don't believe something until I read it for myself, honestly, and then I don't believe that person. So, and I think that that's a decent way to approach things. It doesn't mean that I hear that I'm like, oh man, that Hitler really caught a bad rap. And as Dave Smith made the point several times, it's not as if there's a shortage of hatred for Hitler in the world. Everyone uses Hitler as an example of something that's bad, all the way down to a guy who makes cars for a living. It's Hitler, or a guy who wins an election in the U.S. and wants to cut fraud or something like that. Well, that's Hitler. It's always Hitler, and we've I think overused the Hitler thing. And the sad part about overusing the Hitler thing is that we should be using motherfucking Stalin for this all the time, or Mao. How is it that we excuse two people who killed way more people than Hitler, and we just talk about Hitler all the time? I'm not trying to defend Hitler. I'm just saying that doesn't make any sense, does it? There are two people we know for sure killed way more people than Hitler, and we still just talk about Hitler. Why? Because it helps lead us into wars. That's why we talk about Hitler all the time.
Because experts.
Because we didn't fight a massive hot war against Stalin, so we can't use Stalin to get us into a war, can we? So we use Hitler over and over again.
Amen.
It's annoying. All right. Anyhow, what were we talking about?
I don't know how to. I'm just going to put Douglas Murray for this.
Yeah, just put Murray.
But Nate's on a box of soap.
I'm on a box of soap today.
I didn't want to interrupt. That was good.
Appreciate it.
Already got a vote for Douglas Murray.
Okay, there we go.
This is a lead right here.
So
we don't have a lot of time though, so let's see how many we can get through.
There was this movement to allow like proxy voting in the U.S. Congress, and I'm going to tell you just right off the bat, I don't even care about this conversation at all. But these moms and these moms to be were fighting to be able to vote so they could go home and be with their baby and still be able to vote on ways to steal your money, okay? And so it's super important for them to do that. Whatever. I don't want to have a conversation about whether or not in the year 2025 we could come up with a better way of voting for people. I seriously don't care. You know what I do care about? This lady down here who decided to use her newborn kid as a prop for this conversation, as if there was no way that she could get someone else to hold her stupid baby during this conversation. That she couldn't get a babysitter. She can't afford to pay someone to watch the kid whatsoever. Couldn't have had the dad show up and watch the kid, or couldn't have left the kid at home or whatever. Well, maybe she's breastfeeding or whatever. But there's just no way that she could have gone up there and made a speech without holding their kid while she was making the speech. And this is the future of America. It's a blonde-haired lady who wants to steal your money, holding an even more annoying kid while they're giving a speech.
It's never about it. It's never about equality.
I'm annoyed by it.
They want more.
I'm annoyed by the usage of a newborn baby as a prop for a speech on the floor in Congress when you could have gotten someone else to hold your freaking baby while you were giving that speech.
I tell you what.
Okay?
I'm a single dad, okay? And there are times I have my kid, it's just me. And I have to make arrangements to do certain things. It's just the way it is. Kids aren't allowed in certain places. And I have to make arrangements. I think that's fine.
I'm not even saying the kids aren't allowed. I'm just saying, like what Jake just said, if there was no camera, if we didn't have C-SPAN, if this wasn't being broadcast, guarantee you she would have found someone else to hold the kid when she went up there to give her speech.
She probably has a nanny.
So this is a prop. Okay, yeah, I would say she probably has a nanny. So whatever number this is, I don't know what to call it.
It's 4.
Number 4.
I already called it. I got it.
Babies.
I said holding a stupid baby. It's number 4.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
I'm still upset about the Douglas Murray thing right now. Not
number
everyone
4 is holding a stupid baby.
That's ridiculous. Who says that?
You did.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you said that. What's number 5?
I don't know yet. I'm kind of picking right now.
Yeah. I think 5 is plenty. It looks like Douglas Murray's going to win anyway. I told you.
I do. God, we're skipping over stuff. We're just skipping good things right now, you know? There's things that we just can't skip today, but we have to. Like this conversation about this kid named Karmelo Anthony. Have you seen this story? The story of the
NBA
kid.
player, Karmelo Anthony?
Isn't that his name? I thought that name sounded familiar.
Oh, it's spelled with a K though.
Yeah.
Carmelo with a K.
Is there an NBA player? Because every time I
with
heard
a C, Karmelo Anthony.
Every time I heard that name, I was like, that sounds familiar. It definitely sounds familiar. So what happened in the story was, well, actually, I'm going to let this guy, Kaizen, does he go by Kaizen or Kaizen, tell this story because he does a good job. He's going to give us a great synopsis so we don't have to, of why this story is so dumb.
To the black people who are saying that when Karmelo Anthony killed Austin Metcalf, Austin got what he deserved, what are we doing?
Rosa Parks days is over. You cannot think that you can move somebody out of a seat that you don't own. and think that it's going to be okay. And you can't determine how I'm going to retaliate on you when you put your hands on me in an aggressive manner. Austin Metcalf got exactly what he deserved.
But white people, obviously not all of you, so let me just get that out the way, but a bunch of y'all are just a bunch of racist, bigoted crisis actors.
People really believe that that kid had the right to tell Karmelo to move. If that kid would have just minded his own business, would he or would he not still be alive?
Okay, would you say the same thing if that was a white kid who killed a black kid? There are fake reports going around on the internet about what happened. So here's what actually happened according to the official police report. Karmelo and Austin were at a high school track meet. Karmelo was in the wrong tent. He was from Centennial High School, but was in the tent for Memorial High School. Austin told Karmelo that he was in the wrong tent and needed to move. Karmelo told Austin, touch me and see what happens, while putting his hand in his bag. Then Austin either touched or pushed Karmelo. Karmelo then said, punch me and see what happens. So Austin then grabbed Karmelo. Karmelo then pulled a knife out of his bag, stabbed Austin in the chest, and ran away. Austin died. When the police found him, Karmelo admitted that he did it, but asked if he could claim self-defense. Now look, Austin made mistakes. He shouldn't have touched Karmelo. He shouldn't have grabbed Karmelo. And he didn't deserve to die for it. It's tragic that neither of these young men had learned better conflict resolution skills. And let's be honest, on the scale of physical aggression, Austin.
So what we have here is a, what happens between like high school age kids, I would say pretty often. It's like you get up in someone's face, you want some,
Yeah.
You want some?
Yeah. Hit
So
me.
you kinda
No, you hit
yeah,
me.
you hit me.
Yeah.
And
See what happens.
What happens is this kid, Karmelo, takes a knife out of his bag, stabs the guy in the chest, and he bleeds out real fast. I mean, it's super sad to be at a track meet and you tell a guy he's in the wrong tent, and you end up getting stabbed in the heart and die because of it. And then what's super gross about this are all the people that are defending it somehow. Like somehow Karmelo had a massive threat to his life that warranted killing someone. Good question, Costco. Why did he have a knife at the track meet to begin with? That's interesting. But that's an interesting question.
Yeah, they banned him in Great Britain, maybe.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is we haven't. It definitely wasn't a ninja sword.
Yeah,
we know that. It's been pretty gross to see some of the reactions from.
They're
this.
comparing it to Kyle Rittenhouse.
Kyle Rittenhouse is a really stupid one to compare it to. Like this guy right here says, if Kyle Rittenhouse was justified in using lethal self-defense, if Daniel Penny was justified in using lethal self-defense, then Karmelo Anthony was justified in using self-defense against alleged bullies who instigated an altercation. Correct? Now listen, I wasn't there. Maybe it was way more heated and a way more dangerous situation than what the news reports are saying it is, So I can't fully say that. I can't say the guy wasn't surrounded and didn't think that they weren't about to lynch him,
Or the other guy was making threats like, I'm going to kill you.
Called him the N-word.
Yeah.
Something like that. But there haven't been any reports of that happening. And there were multiple people around for the incident. So I guess we should trust the experts on that, But then going around and defending this guy and compare that to Kyle Rittenhouse and Daniel Penny. Daniel Penny, you had a guy who said that he was ready to go to prison, was going to hurt people, all that kind of stuff, puts him in a chokehold. Kyle Rittenhouse was clearly it's self-defense. Didn't matter what the news was around that trial. Everyone was like, yeah, that was clearly self-defense. What happened there? I don't think that just a normal altercation. I mean, I've been in an altercation like that when I was in high school. The guy got up in my face because I was talking to his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I was just talking. I was probably like...
Actually, his girlfriend was talking to you.
Yeah, she was talking to me.
Yeah.
It was the
you were
actual
just an innocent bystander.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, this is a thing that
Can't
happens.
help you're that good looking.
But to escalate all the way to, I'm going to stab you in the heart and run away, that doesn't seem... That just ain't right. That just ain't right. This guy's raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for his legal defense. On this, he's got people comparing him to Rosa Parks. who was defying, that story.
And then to say that this person got what they deserve, for trying to move someone.
It's just,
people take things so far. And, maybe it was self-defense. We don't know. Again, that there could have been lots of things happening inside that tent. I have no idea.
And,
but according to what's been released so far, it doesn't appear that way.
No.
And I don't think it should be celebrated. It's not like white people were celebrating the deaths that Kyle Rittenhouse had, bestowed.
Well, once you found out they were pedophiles, I mean,
well, yeah, I guess so.
It's kind of like no harm done kind of thing,
They took themselves out.
Yeah. Let me introduce some annoying nuance for you, though. The question is, what would they do if the roles were reversed? What if a white kid had stabbed this black kid who told him to move? What would the black people in these videos, I'm not saying all black people, what would those people be saying about this? Would they be saying this is a racist killing? What would the white people be saying? Mm-hmm. They'd be saying, oh, he feared for his life. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, that there would be a little bit of a complete role reversal for some people. Most people would say, like, yeah, that's totally unjustified. There's no reason to escalate that to the point of stabbing someone. But there are some people out there who would be like, well, kid clearly feared for his life. What are you going to do? Just saying.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
If you're going to ask what if the roles were reversed, you have to ask that for both groups of people that are arguing about this. And the sad part is, even things like this are a little bit of a team sport, I guess.
All right, y'all. That's all the time we have for Dumb Bleep of the Week this week. You got 5 to choose from. And
we've got to stop having these massive,
not as normal as our typical 10.
These things that have a full conversation in them. I didn't even talk about half the stuff I had 4 other clips of the Douglas Murray, Dave Smith thing pulled up. And so we might have to do a little bit more.
Which you can get our commentary on Monday.
Yeah.
So
might have some clips to cut out of that rant though.
Get your votes in while you're voting. Nate, go over the options really quick. Or I guess I can because I put them in there. Number 1, helicopter crashing into the Hudson River is Trump's fault. Number 2, Kristi Noem rolling with the police and her go-go gadget gun. Number 3 was Douglas Murray, which already won. I don't even need to read the rest of them. Number 4 was holding a stupid baby. Number 5, Karmelo stabbing defense. Douglas Murray running away with it.
I do apologize the time got away from us because as I see the kind of throwaway dumbs that are in here, I'm like, there were way better dumbs that we could have talked about other than those that are currently in the stack that we weren't able to get to. And so I did miss some. That's my bad. But I think regardless what happened, it seems like Douglas Murray was going to win. Mm-hmm. So
it didn't matter.
It's the same vote.
No, the Fed Haters Club is telling me that the baby wasn't stupid. The woman holding it is. I know that. I wrote it in there like I did on purpose because I thought it was funny. It's holding a stupid baby.
Yeah, we don't know anything about the baby.
Yeah.
Really.
We don't know if that baby's going to be dumb or not.
Except for that it's being used as a prop.
We don't even know if that's a male or female baby.
Don't know jack about the baby at all.
Don't know when it was born.
Yeah. I want the baby to take no offense to this, but the mom for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All offense to the mom. All right. Well, if you enjoyed that, then please share the show with a friend, a family member, or a foe. Leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Go to GodHatesFeds.com or join gmail.com. Be part of the Fed Haters Club, a place where you can vote, where democracy is heard. And we give you all the choices you can handle.
That we give you.
Yeah. And you make a decision. And today, I told you, we could have just done the Douglas Murray episode. It would have won.
So why even,
Yeah, but we don't want to be tyrannical here. We give you options. Last week,
we want to give you the false appearance of choice.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So Douglas Murray wins Dumb Bleep of the Week this week. Last week, tariffs won. So there's that. It's going to make
We declared it.
It's going to make it into Dumb Bleep of the Month. It has to.
Yeah.
So
how are we going to do it? How are we going to do an episode including Douglas Murray and the tariff conversation and the other winners from
Clear my schedule. Yeah, is what we're going to need. Go to the links in the show notes to support the sponsors that support this show. And if you do all of that, then we'll be back again on Monday. Hope you have a good day, a good weekend, and a good morning, Liberty.